Welcome to the Constance Lov Johnson Show. I'm Senate candidate Constance Lov Johnson, public administrator, president of the Black Legislative American Caucus and Black 20. Building and bridging business and government for economic growth and unity. That is our purpose for this beautiful show. The topic of today's show is business solutions, the Build Back Better program, and the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Here to give us key insights on business solutions is Dr. Eric Kelly. Dr. Kelly is the second generation CEO of the Black Expo. An advocate of Black business growth and unity, he believes in supporting education first, which guides our youth to their careers and entrepreneurship. Black Expo delivers laptops to the public schools in an effort to close the digital divide. Welcome, Dr. Kelly.
Hello, how you doing?
Hello, Dr. Kelly. Nice to have you here with us.
Well, we're so glad to be a part of your first show as we look to the greatness that you're going to be sharing with your listeners and with the audience each Thursday at 7 o'clock.
Thursday, 7 o'clock. It's an honor to have you here. I know this work that you do is extremely valuable to our state and to our nation. And I'm so happy that I got a chance to introduce you to my friends on my page, on my Facebook page here, because most of them are business owners and entrepreneurs. Well, let me give you an overview of what we'll discuss today. The Build Back Better program will tax corporations, and these corporations have not typically pay their taxes. So it's not that they didn't pay their taxes, but they are typically not eligible to pay taxes because of the employees, the number of employees that they are hiring. And typically corporations, when going before city councils, are completely removed of any taxation. And we have teachers paying taxes. We have factory workers paying taxes, but our wealthiest corporations do not pay taxes. And that is to give them tax relief. But we're at a time right now where we desperately need our corporations to pay their taxes. And this is what this incorporates the concept of the Build Back Better program. My question to you is, do you believe we should tax our wealthiest corporations to improve the effectiveness of our government agencies, such as the U.S. Department of Commerce or the Department of Education?
Well, there are two sides to that answer for me as a entrepreneur, as a thought leader, and as a person who continues to give scholarships to kids. The Black Business Expo gives scholarships to kids up to $5,000. When you begin to talk about major companies and corporations not being taxed, I believe that they should continue to give funds from their foundations. Many of the companies and corporations who are not being taxed, they do give funds from their foundations. But then there are those who don't feel that giving taxes is a part of what they want to do because it affects their bottom line. I think it should start at the leadership. I think that many of the companies and corporations who know that they're not being taxed because they worked on a loophole to keep themselves from being obligated to be taxed, I think the leadership need to step up and look at the programs and look at America the Beautiful and see what they can do to help and ensure that the least of these can be just as successful as them.
And that is right. The least of these. I know that the Black Expo brings businesses together, brings Black businesses together to share commodities, to gain partnerships, to gain investment capital, to just share a network so that we can share knowledge and grow in our businesses. But when you look at these corporations that are receiving major tax incentives up in the upwards of millions, some billions of dollars, when we have a pandemic taking place, when we have a great need for greater funds, or to build our budget so that we can accommodate the needs of the people going through these stressful times, it just seems to me almost a voluntary agreement, to support President Biden through this era of the pandemic. And not just for the pandemic, but to look around to resolve our educational issues and to provide greater opportunities for contracts for minority businesses. I know that it seems as if money is the only answer, but I believe the compassion that these businesses need to have in this particular time will be just a great source for help.
Well, many of our companies and corporations, while they do have the, like I said earlier, they do have the, I would say, an opportunity to do something with people, with organizations, and with small business owners. I believe that we, as the small business owner, should look at how to put this concern in front of them in a way where it's a concern that they see it. A lot of times I continue to say the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And sometimes people don't exist because people don't know they exist. It is easy for us to be Monday morning quarterbacks on what companies and corporations should do. But I believe that many of these companies and corporations have people who are in leadership who, for some reasons, don't get our message to them. The companies and corporations that support the Black Business Olympics and the Black Business Expo are companies and corporations that we truly have to get ourselves in front of. And when you look at the small business owner who is working to build capacity, who's working to build a life for them and their families, one of the challenges that they have is that they're in the fire every day. And when companies and corporations sit on the side of, we don't have to, we're not made to, sometimes those companies and corporations, as you know, will not. And one of the things that we as business owners and as companies and corporations must do is to begin to get our message in front of these companies and corporations when we know initially that they are hiding behind tax breaks. We know that they are hiding behind opportunity. One of the things that I find a lot of times that happens is that many of these companies and corporations who do know what they're doing don't step to the plate because nobody is really asking them to step to the plate. Nobody's getting that message out. You know, when you look at the news media and you look at press, you look at how the narrative is designed for people to get what they want. You know, when we look at what happened to George Floyd, and we look at what happened to Tamir Rice, and we look at what happened to so many people who lost their lives with police brutality, or I say police incompetence. And if in fact Black Lives Matter, if in fact no one said anything about it, it would continue to go on as it's been going on all throughout time. And because of the rage, and because of the people around the world saying no more, this is not right, now we have it front and center. And the reason I brought that up is because that is one of the things that happens with many of these companies and corporations. Many times, no one calls them to the carpet. No one says, "Hey, you know, we want help. the Minority Business and Development Group, the National Minority and Development Group out of DC, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and many other organizations. They raised their eyebrow to ask that question, to get people to be a part of what's going on. And I think that there must be a coalition of people getting together and having this conversation, because it's easy for us to not get things done, but it's always just as easy to get them done.
Well, speaking of the George Floyd incident and the Black Lives Matter movement, I applaud the Black Lives Matter movement because of their courage and persistence in getting some of this work and putting this stress and this anguish in front of the public to help everyone understand what Black Americans experience in the country, economically, discrimination, injustices, criminal injustices. And I'm looking at how these perceptions impact business, how they impact our economy. And it makes you wonder if during President Trump's era, there was such division and such a need to start a civil war that it caused us to look at our economies and to consider building something separate away from the general economy, fearing the backlash of a president. And now I believe a lot of that has actually spilled over into Biden's administration. Although he is moving in the right direction, he is diversifying government leaders to make sure that the administration is completely diverse. I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of that courage. But I believe we're still suffering from the decisions from the previous administration. And I know it takes about a year to get past that previous administration. But
well, one of the things that I just wanted to chime in, because I think you're hitting the nail on the head. But we always have to look at what happened before he got into that office. Now, mind you, I am not one to sit here and give a president a bye when Black men are still being shot in the street and there's no law and no president that's been put forth to protect our young men from not only brutality, racism, and some of the other ills of our community. But one of the things that we have to do as a group and as a community is we have to look at that $2 trillion that the African American community has. We have to look at that $2 billion that the business owners have right now. I believe that in spite of the government, in spite of the ills, in spite of what Trump did, in spite of what Biden is doing, that our community needs to unite and begin to look at what we can do to make it better for all of us. Many times, many of the other communities, the Jewish community, the Hispanic community, the Asian community, and one of the things you notice, the Asian community don't even vote. But one of the things that all three of those communities do is they make the dollar revolve in their communities for more than 6 hours. And that 6 hours that's in our community, I always submit, it sleeps in our community on that Friday night, and Saturday morning it gets up and runs out of our community, not just because people can't find Black businesses, but because of the fact that the narrative is pushed at our community for us to be Black targeted, and we a lot of times are not Black led. And when we can get ourselves, and you're doing the same kind of work that I am doing, you're working to immobilize and bring voices together, bring businesses together, bring corporations together to change the narrative. But we as a community, even though we're asking the question, and I ask the question all the time, when can we get a piece of the pie of those corporate dollars that are being pushed into those other neighborhoods?
Well,
We
that brings me. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that brings me to the notion of unity.
Mhm.
I'm so excited that we're planning together, Black and Black Expo, planning a conference together to bring some of the agencies, state and federal agencies, to Charlotte, North Carolina, to put forth all of these beautiful courses and sessions to have a better understanding and a better opportunity to gain some awards, some contractual awards. I believe that the Black 20 project, bringing 20 partners to the table to support each other and to stand by each other during those difficult times, and sharing information that may accentuate each other's businesses, is what the Black Legislative American Caucus is providing, and that is underway. And this is a nationwide project. And our contacts, the people that you and I both communicate with, are on the same wavelength. And I'm excited about what we can do to bring greater opportunities for economic growth and unity to Black businesses in the country, to entrepreneurs. Speaking of trillions of dollars, the government right now is in the process of attempting to raise the debt ceiling. But that is to make sure that the bipartisan infrastructure bill will fund these roads and highways and all of these projects that will be initiated through the bipartisan infrastructure bill. My question to you is, how can we move Black businesses that provide these types of services, road services, computer technology services? Because once the roads, these new roads, will be most likely designed to suit electric cars, because of course Biden is moving towards a more sound and environmentally friendly nation. How do you think we can move our Black businesses in that direction to get a head start on getting those lucrative awards? I was just reviewing grants.gov today, where you find most of those awards. You have to go through a process to even qualify to receive the awards. And I put them on employconference.com to allow our businesses to go through the full process to be qualified to receive these awards. So what do you think we need to do to make sure that they're there?
Well, what you are doing is not only tremendous, but it really is amazing. Because what happens most of the time when government have jobs, we're not, the word is not qualified, we're not informed. And being informed is the most important part. As we look at our nation and we look at where the money that the government is going to spend, a lot of times I believe, and it's just my belief, a lot of times I believe that many Black business owners don't want to go through the process. And we have got to begin to get our Black business owners from across the world, and definitely from the state of North Carolina, as we'll talk about the percentage of Black businesses that are getting government grants across North Carolina. But we have to begin to get them to understand that there is a process, and going through that process only allows us to be by the table. It doesn't put us at the table. And we still have to, as a group, vote and vote the right people in office so that we can get to the table. Many times we're around the table, but we can't get to the table because then there's some other hurdles. We've seen what happened with the last administration. We are seeing what's happening with this administration. The reason that I talked a little bit about what we have to begin to do as a community, and we talk about that word unite and how important uniting is, we have to begin to unite and inform people so we can build capacity. And that's why your partnership and my partnership is important. You work from a governmental level. I work from a grassroots level. Okay. Both, I don't want to say parties because some people may think we talk about different parties, but organizations, that's a better word. Both
Yes.
organizations have the same mission. The mission is to build capacity. The mission is to inform more Black business owners. The mission is to make our community self-determined, not determined, because it's a different from being determined and self-determined. Determined means that somebody else is bringing stuff in and they're determining what you're doing. But self-determination means that you are actually leading from your community, because many times people don't see Black businesses as families. They see them as entities. And so we have to unite so that we can build Black businesses and understand when we build a Black business, we are building a nation, a family, a nation. And that's one of the things that I would say to that question. And it's a great question.
I believe that this coming era will be similar to the era immediately following emancipation. There were so many innovations and so many great, economically strong inventions that came from the Black community. Of course, the Black community was segregated, and they engaged in patents and trademarks. Those are some of the processes that you just mentioned that we won't follow the process, or I shouldn't say we won't follow the process, but it's information that's not readily available. And if it's not taught in the school systems, coming from the history that we've come from, torture and efforts to block our economies, I believe that we're going to now emerge to understand those processes. And I foresee us being completely engaged in patents and trademarks.
Well,
and ensure that we are protecting our businesses, making sure that we have our grant contractual numbers and our numbers for these government contracts to vie for these contracts. I foresee a great revolution taking place under this administration, and it's perfectly in place. The majority, the majority of Black Americans are Democrats, and right now the party is in position in both the U.S. House and the Senate, and with Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, as the tie-breaking president of the Senate. It is just a perfect time for us to make advancements and to move with urgency to make sure that we're in place by the next presidential election.
when we talk about being in place, we talk about information. We have to look at what's coming as a Black community. Many
Projections.
times it comes and it's here and we're in experiencing it, and we're always running a little behind. And I'm not saying that that's what we're doing right now. I'm just saying sometimes it seems like we're running a little behind. Right now, we should be looking at blockchain, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and looking at that whole side of what's going on in the space that's happening right now. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is because when there is a conversation about currency and being decentralized, and when there's a conversation about people becoming banks, and there's a conversation about a new technology like blockchain, we as a Black community must be informed. When you talk about unity and we talk about information, we have got to begin to look at what's next as a community. One of the reasons that the Black Business Olympics was born was because many times most our young people see us as either singers, dancers, athletes, rump shakers, and drug dealers or criminals. That's the narrative that's pushed to us. But one of the things that we at the Black Business Olympics and the Black Business Expo wanted to do is to actually show our students, people like yourself, and people who are in business around the world, to change that narrative so that we can begin to not only do business, but communicate and build capacity. Because if we can build capacity, then we can build communities. It would be great if we had a great leader like yourself to be in the Senate to pretty much fight for some of the things that Black business is always talking about getting. Like I said, we're around the table, but being around the table does not help our bottom line. And so we need more people like yourself who is sensitive to what's going on, not only in the Black community, but in the world. And we need to have more people like yourself. And I know this is not a political message for everybody. I'm just venting because many times people like myself who are business owners, we're in the middle or we're in the fire of doing business. I have been in the fire of building businesses since 1989. And that's my lane. And many times, and we had this conversation a couple of days ago, because you're doing the exact same thing that we're doing. A lot of times people start using the word copy. And that's a negative tone when it comes to black folk, because we all want to be our first. We don't want to have no copies. But as I said, and I say to many people, everybody has a lane to be in. And our lane is to continue to give scholarships to kids and have them to look at a future. Your lane, and this is just my opinion, your lane is to facilitate those kids' opportunities through government. And a lot of times we don't join together, not because we don't want to, but because we are doing the work. And I just want to say to you, that's one of the things that we have to look at when we look at the Joe Bidens of the world, when we look at the government, when we look at the allocations. If you don't have a government arm and you don't have a business arm and they don't work together, then we can't get anything done.
Well, I agree with you 100%. This is an excellent point. We're in a state right now where to put anyone in these congressional seats that are not, or that's not working in business or understanding how businesses function, how government and business work together, how government is really and truly responsible for rescuing the economic status of people and of cultures of people. We're right now across the country at a minimal percentage, typically about 2% per state. Not all states. New York is pretty strong, but most states like ours, North Carolina, has a very low percentage of Black businesses. And coming out of the pandemic is a good time to focus on business and a good time to, as Biden beautifully states, build back better. We have to move in a different direction educationally and vocationally and as entrepreneurs. We can't continue the same. I believe, when I was an instructor in Chicago, I was a counselor, chaplain, and instructor. And I created a program that focused on the vocational aspirations of teenagers. And I did a study and determined that children usually know what they specialize in by the age of 9, and it usually is fulfilled. So as teenagers, and I work with these teenagers, and there are barbers, there are beauticians, of course, that those are our two strongest businesses. And some wanted to be scientists. I ran into a cartoonist. You see, they already know. And I put the cartoonist in a local community college program that was one of the only programs for cartoonists on the East Coast.
Mhm.
And he was a brilliant, brilliant artist, um, a brilliant cartoonist. And we also reviewed opportunities with Disney and
Mhm.
other types of, because when he first walked in the room, he didn't know how to move from his interest to his career. And so
Mhm.
that program taught him how to research, to find schools, to get the training, research, to look at the types of jobs in his field. And it was an exciting time to watch them so excited about preparing for their futures at that particular age, in high school. But we need to transition these programs, and I would love to look at some of the educational programs you have. I know you provide laptops to our public schools, which is just wonderful because there is a digital divide, and our
Mhm.
youth learned that during this pandemic, that you really need to practice at home and study at home, and really need to understand the dynamics of the internet and how the computers work as parents and students. So we know that education is the the backbone of our careers and our entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
Um, tell us tell us how you feel about education transitioning into entrepreneurship, transitioning into employment labor, and what are some of the programs you have in place to assist our youth, our children and youth, um, in reaching their goals?
Well, first of all, that brilliant statement that you made earlier about the 2% is exactly the example of business owners not understanding and not knowing what's going on in North Carolina. When I began to talk about the $2 trillion, and then I began to talk about the $2 billion that Black businesses represent, no one sits back and say, well, oh, Jeff Bezos has $3 billion, which means he has $100 billion more than all the Black businesses in North America. So with that 2% that you gave, many times Black businesses don't understand the impact of what's going on. And that's what we alluded to earlier about having partnerships and having people who know those kinds of things to help Black businesses to understand that building capacity can only happen when you do know those numbers. Now, the Black Business Expo, I didn't want to gloss over that. I thought it was a brilliant statement. A lot of times, like I said, my lane is business owners and business development. My lane is exposure. My lane is ensuring that our Black business owners have a platform for them to share what they do because of the pandemic. Now, before the pandemic, we were doing physical shows, doing about 7,000 people, about 300 businesses every year. And we each year give out scholarships to kids. What we found is that many of our young people who do go to college, some of them start their own businesses. And starting their own businesses means that a lot of times our students who are going to college don't even finish college. And what we wanted to do is provide some funding for kids who go to our website at www.blackbusinessexpousa.com and sign up. We don't look at the A and B student. We look at students who can articulate to us why they want a scholarship. You know, many people don't understand, and I know your audience may not know my story, but I'm just going to give you a brief piece of it as we move forward. I was I was in high school, and every time the teacher said, "Who's going to college?" I raised my hand. Never knew how I was going to college. You know, I didn't come from a wealthy a family, didn't come from a war chest of money. I just came from a regular family where your great grandfather was rich, but your grandmama wasn't rich, and she was raising me. And I was fortunate enough to be stopped by three teachers in high school in my senior year. and they say I was cheating the world because I would go in my art class and I would draw the day of the project, and my art teacher said, and then you do the best art in the school. You are wasting your time and you're cheating the world, and we got to change that. They made me draw for all three of those classes all year long. To make a long story short, I won the best artist in the state of North Carolina at the end of that year, and letters began to come in. And once the letters began to come in, I was able to go to school on an art scholar at North Carolina Central University. At that time, was the #1 school in Black art, and I wanted to be a Black artist, so I did my research, and that's where I went and attended and graduated. My grandmother came to me and she said, because of that fact that happened to us, and mind you, that had never happened to anybody in our family.
Oh,
And
yeah.
she said that because of that, that she wanted to do a program to give scholarships to kids to go to school, because she said there was a difference in me. There was a different way I moved because I didn't have to pay. There was a different way I went to school because I didn't have to pay. And I am a guy who loved education. So I treated college like it was high school. So I went to school. Many of my peers would tell you, I went to school from 8 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock, like I was going to regular school, and put a library between each one of my classes. So 2 hours on one subject, I would know it, and that was how I stayed in college and got through college. And I think one of the things that happens when we as adults don't take the time out and look back at our kids, and I have a quote where I say, if you value your value, then your value will be valuable. And
Yes.
our value is our kids. And so I've been working on this program year after year after year. And one of the drawbacks from me working on this program, and there are not many, but there is one. When you see a Black man in America the Beautiful saying he wants to give scholarships to kids, many people don't believe it. And many people don't donate. And I find that's the challenge that we have in our community as being unified. If there is, think about it for a minute. If there is $2 trillion that we spend every year, we represent the sixth largest nation in terms of dollars and cents. Why can't we as a group unite and stop looking for government to help us make it happen? Because if you think about it, government is not, I hate to say it, I know it's your show, but government is not jumping ahead to say to us, hey, we need to give y'all reparations. After 300 years of you working for free for us, let's just give you the 40 acres in the mule. You know,
Well, I believe that we are owed lots of money. And I believe there is a process by which people can organize to make sure that those funds are delivered to the families that were affected by enslavement and racism. Those
mhm,
my family is not a part of the enslavement movement, but
mhm,
I promise you, they went through the same terror, the same discriminatory actions.
that's right.
They were robbed violently. I found to get off the subject a little bit, I found a will from my great great grandfather to
Mhm.
my grandmother, leaving her 150 acres of land. And then I looked for her through the ancestry records to see what happened to the land, and it's just disappeared. She fought in court for a while, bless her heart, but women weren't respected as highly as men back in those days, and but her children and his wife Sumner fought for her land, but I believe she lost the fight. But
So,
just uh, getting to that need to organize governments. That's one of the reasons I persist in running for office, is because we have to understand that this government is our government.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that government over there giving us something that we want. It's something that they owe us. And not just from enslavement and not just from the civil rights era, denying us the same opportunities, but even today, businesses are disproportionately receiving small little contracts for certain people and huge billion-dollar contracts for other people.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that our nation has promised it would not do. And there are laws that enforce this type of, enforce these agencies to practice equality and practice integrity and ethics. And we have to go fight for our revenues. Everyone fights, it's not just that Black people are making a noise. White people make noise all the time. And we have to learn to embrace debate. We have Democrats today trying to call politicians mean. Really? Well, I'll tell you what's mean. What's mean is slapping chains on people. And what's mean is denying this group of people the same opportunities as if the strengths and talents are not in that community. The strengths and talents are particularly in that community, and they need to be utilized. Just like you said earlier, you're hurting the world by restricting people from not utilizing the skills and talents they have, all that we have contributed to this country. So,
well, one of the things that I want to say is this: we have not healed as a group. When we talk about the 300 years, we talk about slavery, the Jim Crow laws, we talk about what has happened to us in business and the different kinds of allocations of dollars and cents. We have not healed. The reason that I bring these things up, because I think a lot of times people talk like, oh, by the way, you're free. Well, you're not free if you can't move around this country without worrying about being shot and killed. You're not free if you can't open up a business and have a conversation about money coming from your community and you're attacked. You're not free if you have a government who sits there and watches what happens, and then there is no person in between that's able to say, let's talk about it. So while we don't want to talk about slavery, we don't want to talk about Jim Crow, we don't want to talk about civil rights, but we do want to talk about the $2 trillion. And so the reason that I do what I do is because I believe that once we unite, and I believe we're going to unite in spite of the continual chatter about us not being good business owners, not being good people, and not keeping our words, I believe we still are going to unite. There are over 8 billion people on the planet. Some 4 billion of those people are Black and brown folk. 6 billion of those people are Black and brown folk. We have to continue to push the envelope, and we have to continue to look for leadership. And a lot of times we don't look for leadership in our community. And I wanted to suggest this evening that people begin to look at what you're doing for us as Black people, as Black businesses, and more important, as a woman who's fighting for the right of the little guy. That's not saying you're the little woman, but fighting for the rights of the little guy. And we need to begin to look at what you're doing as a group. We need to see how we can support what you're doing as a group. We need to look at our individuals that are running for elected offices and understand that's their lane. Stay in your lane. There's no need for me to criticize your lane if I'm not in your lane. Right. If I'm in your lane,
that and I'm absolutely my lane,
and I'm doing, I know it is. And
they're going to job wants it. I believe that pursuing elected office is one of the most challenging experiences, because you have people that really believe in you, fighting you because they want the same opportunity. But it's it's really amazing when God gives you a purpose, and sometimes the timing is perfect, but the individual is not so excited about the timing. But there's one thing that I know, and that is that I am a public administrator and I am a politician and I belong in government, and
And
I will make a difference.
I want to tell people today, if you're sitting out there and you're listening to this conversation, you will notice that this conversation was only able to scratch the surface of what's going on in government and what's going on in business today. One of the reasons that this show exists is to begin to pull back the curtains. A lot of times I tell people, I say slavery hurt more than Black people. We always cried to be the victim, but slavery hurt everybody.
Everybody.
Slavery created white supremacy. Slavery created how we treat each other. Slavery created the culture that we're in right now. So everybody got hurt. But one
I
of the
always say that Lincoln and Martin Luther King saved a lot of souls.
And in order, you're absolutely right. And in order to change what is in front of us right now, we have to do one thing, and that's to unify our thoughts,
Yes.
our information, our powers, our businesses, and our people. Why run against you? Think about it for a moment. Why run against you when you are representing the African American community and have been doing it for years and years and years? Why run against you? But we know there's going to be opposition. But when opposition doesn't bring home the bacon, we don't eat. When opposition don't bring home the bacon, we do not eat. So we have to change these things by our vote, and we have to change these things by how we communicate. And the reason that the Black Business Expo during the pandemic does 24 hours, 7 days a week of business owners to talk about their businesses and to inspire our youth is so that we can communicate to the world that we are great leaders, innovators, that we are business owners, that we're not stepping and fetch it, that we are not just athletes, and we're just not, rump shakers and dancers and all that other entertainment stuff.
And those athletes need to invest more in these smaller businesses.
But when you're an athlete and you're convinced and trained to be who you are, and then you're put on a shelf away from black folk and Black business, and you're actually living in a world where you are feared, where you have fear to deal with your own folk because the narrative is there. We as a group have to change that narrative. And the only way we can change that narrative is by electing people like yourself who can then say to them, and also say to the little guy, hey, we have to unite to build a bridge to
do business, and to fight for our children. And not that we don't already do it, but we have a lot of work to do. I believe that when we finally come together and understand that we cannot fear each other and we can't worry about when we're going to drop dead on this earth, we have to walk forward, grab our children, give them instructions, and stand by it, fearing nothing. We have to walk fearless in this country. And that means grabbing our children, and when they're squirming, trying to get away, hold them tight and sitting them down, regardless of what they've done. I don't care what kind of situation they've been in, to sit them down in front of you and give them orders and let them box and kick. But this is how it's going to be. Not that we're not doing those things, but there are too many obstacles and too many distractions today, and too many wireless situations going on for parents, teachers, leaders of our youth, children and youth, to simply accept what is taking place. We have to grab hold of it. And that is what I promise you I will do. I will grab hold of it. I promise you.
That is a great thing that, like I say, we have to value our value. If we value our value, then our value is valuable. And when we don't value our value, then our value is not valuable. And so, with that being said, I want to thank you so very much for allowing me to be on your platform.
Thank you so much for being on the show today. And I want to bring you back a little later on because you have so much wisdom to share. And you always inspire me. You're such an inspiring person. Just sitting the first hour that we had our conversation, and you notice I said hour.
Yes,
it was a long discussion, and we still couldn't hang up. We had so much to talk about. But I really thank God for you, and I'm really excited about the work that you're doing. And you're perfect for our age. You're perfect for the time. And I want to do everything I can do to merge with you and to work with you. And I am going to ask everyone to do the same. So everyone contact Dr. Kelly to let him know what your profession is and what you can offer this world through him. But I thank you so much.
You can reach us at Black Business Expo USA. You can email me at info@blackbusinessexpo1. Now, one of the things in closing, I know it looks like we're going a little bit over our time, but that's all right. One thing that I would like to say is that it's been a joy to know you. It's been a joy to listen to your strength. It's been a joy to meet a brilliant woman like yourself. And I look forward to the great things that you're going to continue to do. I think this show is going to be just awesome for you. Gives you a chance and an opportunity to build a platform and build community, because unity is what we need. And unifiers are what we need, not dividers, but unifiers.
Unifiers, yes.
You are a unity. I'm saying that word. People say he called her a unity. Well, when people ask me who I am, I say I am execution, because my job is to execute and to make sure that it's done. And you have to agree to have us here today on Thursday. Your first show was in execution.
That's right.
So we want you to continue to do the great things that you're going to do. Like I said, people can reach me at Black Business Expo USA. Our next show is going to be November the 15th through the 21st.
That's right.
We've done 4 shows. We did one in November, 38,000 people came. We did one in February, 48,000 people came with 96,000 people seeing our reruns. And then we did one in August, and we had 250,000 people to come. I looked at the numbers over the course of 10 months, and we had over 500,000 people to come to my
event. That's beautiful.
The question is, this is the question. The question is, if we can get 500,000 people to come to my show, just to my little show, okay, 7 days a week. Think about it. With over 1,200 to 5,000 people on the hour for every hour, it says that we have work that we can do, not that we have to do, that we can do to change the world. And that is what the Black Business Olympics is all about. That is what my work is all about. And that's what your work is all about. And again, I thank you for allowing me to come on your show tonight.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kelly.
And I know Mark is probably saying, hey, guys, y'all doing it to me again. The information that we have is so powerful until people need to understand that when you're doing the work, it's called work. It's not called I'm doing the work. It's called work. My grandmother used to say, great people don't walk around talking about their great. Great people walk around doing great things. You're doing great things. And my great grandfather, I got to always call Henry Stanley in because he was my daddy. He says, be relentless, but research.
Yes.
Be relentless.
Scholarly.
research.
Research, yes.
And as he would always say, and as I always say, what you're looking for is looking for you. So I want you to think about that for a moment, audience, as today, as you've gone through the things that you were going through, were you looking for this moment? If you're looking for this moment to understand more about government affairs, if you're looking for this moment to understand more about business, our Black farmers, and the list goes on and on for businesses that are suffering. If that's what you're looking for, this is the show for you. So tune in every Thursday night at 7
Every
o'clock.
Thursday at 7 p.m. I will be here. Come rain.
We know Damon Johns is doing entrepreneurship week right now, and he started at 7 o'clock. But this hour right now is the hour of power for North Carolina.
That
And
is
again,
right.
I want to thank you. And
Thank
I'm
you
sure
so much, sir. Thank you so much, Dr. Kelly.
I'm sure
I
you're
so
going to let everybody know how to get in contact with you, as I did well. And as I always say, genius is common, and I'll see you on the other side. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the other side.
Thank you, Doctor. Well, I want you to know that this is a Thursday show, and we will be here every Thursday at 7 o'clock p.m. Next Thursday, we will be attending the North Carolina Senior Democrats. My interview with them takes place next week, and we're going to bring you to that program. I hope that you learned as much as I did on the show today from Dr. Kelly, and I hope to provide you with a plethora of issues every Thursday to enlighten you about the federal government and about our Congress. As I make my way through this campaign, I always, and all those folks who know me, I always make sure that you are abreast of every stage and every experience I go through to make sure you can follow the same path and have a clear understanding of what to project to be successful. I will always do that for you as I do this for students that I teach. I love that I have this platform to use. I have to thank these beautiful people who are helping me do this. And I promise you this, everything that we do here will be scholarly and will be researched. And I will bring people here who can take us to a new place every week. If you need to contact me, you can reach me at ConstanceLovJohnson.com. ConstanceLovJohnson.com. My email address is 2022@ConstanceLovJohnson.com. Thank you for joining us, and I hope that you'll join us again next week.